So thank you, Dr. James Chen, for joining us today. I have several questions about wellness, and I'm hoping you can help me to have a better understanding. We see the word wellness often. So what is a definition from a global perspective?
Yeah, believe it or not, there isn't a universally accepted definition of wellness. Despite all of us talking about wellness, and it's such a hot word, the World Health Organization has a definition, and I think it's interesting that that definition is not just the absence of disease, but it's also the presence of something else. Now, what is that something else? I think most of us would agree that wellness implies some sort of goodness in your life, something that you're looking forward to, and this idea that's very powerful of self-actualization, the ability to be, for lack of a better term, to be all that you can be, to be who you were meant to be, to feel like you are there, you are living out your full potential. That's all wellness. So it is very elusive. It's not easily defined, but certainly we've moved away from this idea that, well, if you're not sick and you're not impaired, therefore you are by definition well, and we don't think that anymore. So that's very interesting.
So James, are there any best practice that you have seen working around to cope with stress?
Yeah, I wish I had best practices. That would imply that people know what to do for wellness. And the reality is that in this new field called wellness, people can't even agree on what wellness is, let alone what helps wellness, what cures the lack of wellness. People talk about resiliency a lot. And I'm not a wellness researcher or a resiliency researcher, but what I do know is that, the idea of this innate kind of toughness that lets you weather storms, we don't know where that comes from. We don't know how to instill it if you don't have it. We have some thoughts, there are always thoughts, but this idea that you can take a workshop and you can learn resiliency, it's not proven. And I'm a little dubious, actually. Not that we shouldn't try, but I'm a little dubious. The same thing with this idea of mindfulness. You hear everybody's talking about mindfulness. And to this point, having read some of the literature, I'm not convinced that we have a way to teach mindfulness. We know that mindful people do better, but how do you instill that in somebody who's not clearly mindful already? So in TOH, we've adopted an approach towards wellness that follows the Stanford model. And basically, we think of 3 circles. The first circle is the personal wellness circle. And that's probably the most intuitive. It's what most people think about when they think of wellness. Are you eating well? And if you want to talk about as a department, as a hospital, are we providing you with healthy food so that you can eat well? Are you resting? We talked about the value of rest. Do you get enough time for sleeping, for vacation? Are you exercising? Are you surrounded by people who support you? Do you have a social circle within work that's supportive and nurturing and encouraging, right? All of these things go into personal wellness. And within that circle is the mindfulness workshops, is the resiliency workshops, which we want people to do. Leadership training. One of the key benefits of leadership training is you find out about yourself, you find out what you're good at, what you're not good at. And so that helps your wellness. These are all within that first circle. But we would be wrong if we stopped in the first circle. So the second circle is leadership. So leadership is basically, what do people like me do to facilitate your wellness? So you're doing everything that you can, but still it's not enough if the leaders of your particular division, your department, the hospital are not there with you, because we're in it together. So a great example of leadership is me, right? Somebody decided that the Department of Medicine needs a vice chair for wellness. And that position needs to be supported. And just that decision alone, number one, it sends a message to the members that wellness is important. It's as important as finance, it's as important as research, etc. Number two is that there's a person who is being asked full-time to think about what to do for your wellness, our wellness. And that sends a very, very powerful message to the division and the department. Within that circle of leadership also are things like vision. You know, are we articulating a vision that includes wellness? So a lot of departments have visions that include, you know, world-class healthcare, world-class research. We're going to break barriers, we're going to innovate, we're going to destroy disease, but are we going to keep each other well? And that needs to be articulated not by people at the bottom, by people at the top, right? Is that in our vision? Do we have policies that help foster wellness? And I'm going to include equity there, right? Because without equity, there is no wellness. So do we have hiring policies that include wellness and gender equity and racial equality? Do we have enlightened policies about flexibility in work, about mat leave, paternal leave? These are all things that can only be set by our leaders, and so no matter how much I exercise, I'm not going to be able to influence that. So leadership is the second circle. The third circle is institutional wellness. So there are some obvious things there that we think about, like, you know, if there are nails all over the ground, well, that's clearly not wellness, right? So we need to work in a safe environment. Some other things that might not be as obvious is things like just culture. So TOH has embraced this idea of just culture, this idea that if you see something wrong, you should have no fear to report it, and not fear reprisal or being singled out or being looked down upon, and that fosters a feeling, an environment of wellness. Institutional wellness can include things like, are there enough places for you to sit down? You know, shopping malls nowadays have no seats. They don't want people to loiter, but what has happened is that people don't like visiting the mall because there's no place to sit. There's no place to socialize, there's no place to just have a rest, right? Do we build our hospitals like that? Because, you know, goodness knows we work really, really hard. Sometimes you just gotta sit down. And if we want to foster, you know, we talked about social supports. If we want to foster physicians supporting other physicians, well, where are they going to do that if they don't even have a place to sit? Right now, because of the pandemic, of course we know and we understand that there are no places to sit down and have a coffee. You can buy a coffee, but all the seats are blocked off. Now that's understandable from an infection control point of view, but what has it done to our ability to mentor each other, to support each other, to encourage each other? All of that happens over coffee. And so institutional wellness, sometimes it extends to things that we don't think about.
Yes, this is very true. You know, like I'm really glad that you bring that up. And I really appreciate that you talk about the three circles of wellness. There's a very different way to see wellness and how we could improve our own life and also help people.
I think I and the Department of Medicine, we have a vision for wellness, and we've already talked a little bit about the 3 circles. And I'd love everybody to think about wellness in terms of those 3 circles. And if you're thinking as a division head or department head, what can I do for my division, for my friends, my members? Think about those 3 circles. What have I done in terms of personal wellness for my members? What have I done in terms of being a leader in wellness? What is the physical space? What does it look like? And what can we do there in terms of institutional wellness? But if you ask me, well, what is my message for my friends in the Department of Medicine? I think it's going to be a little bit different. What I would love to see is a department that is like a family. When people come here to work, they have the sense that not only do we do great teaching, great patient care, great research, but we take care of each other. From a wellness point of view, I think we can only benefit when we serve something bigger outside of ourselves.
You truly speak from your heart, and you really bring your own personal opinion, to this topic. And I really can tell that you really care about your work and the people around you.
I actually really loved our tagline, "You're in my care." And originally I wasn't as thrilled with it because it kind of meant to me that all the patients were in my care, and whatever happened to them, it was my responsibility. It was a heavy responsibility. But as time goes on, I'd like to change that around and say that if you're in the Department of Medicine, you're in my care. Now, I'm not anybody, so I can't, care for everybody, but if everybody has that attitude, you're in my care, then I think we're set, we're golden. A family that cares for one another is wellness. A lot of things will happen naturally if we have that. We're not there, obviously. We need to instill that culture. Not many corporations actually have that culture, but some do. And the ones who do, they have employees, they have people who work there who are fiercely loyal. They will give themselves to the organization because they have a sense that the organization cares about them. They will do things without pay, without expectation of reward, because they feel it's good for the company. And I think that's ultimately where we want to get to. I think everybody wants that, and how do you get there, I guess is the question. But it starts with an idea. Right? This is not just a place to work. It is not just a place of excellence, but it is a place where you're in my care. That's what I'd love to be able to share with my colleagues, to instill in them, and I hope they agree that that's worthwhile to build. And if you have ideas, if you guys think, yeah, that's what I want to, and I have ideas on how to make that happen, please contribute. One of the things that I want to dream about, okay, if I get to take wellness to the next level for the next 10 years, I'd like eventually for us to not just think about ourselves. Ultimately, the best organizations, organizations who are truly well, they approach wellness not from a self point of view. They approach wellness from a others point of view. What can we do to help others? And in the process, we will become well ourselves. And we all know this, right? When we help other people, our own problems are put into perspective. Not that they disappear, but we see the problems in a better perspective, and we realize how lucky we are. And we are lucky. Obviously, we're lucky. And I know that many of us already do this. We do this, but on an individual basis. We volunteer in shelters, we serve food, the residents I know for a fact do this. But let's do it as a community. Let's do it as a department. And then maybe some of the vexing problems that plague us, they start to solve themselves. And maybe we just might find some partners in the community more expert than us, who see us as a contributor in our community, and they come up to us and say, hey, you know what? I want to help you. I want to contribute to you. I want to fix your problems that you can't fix yourself because you care about us. So you're in my care. It's the same thing. So that would be my dream, but that's a long way out.
I feel privileged to have you as my colleague, and also have the privilege and opportunity to work with you together on several programs. We will continue to have more conversation about wellness and also other initiatives that you're going to launch in the future. And I hope you will be available to join me again.